Hello, everybody. I'm usually not afraid of cold winters, but when I have to do a very complex component and I have no time, I usually feel that the winter is coming. My name is Plamen Zdravkov, and I am a principal developer in KendoUI team. And I have been dealing with reusable components for about 7 years now. During this time, I have been answering customer questions, fixing bugs, creating new functionalities, creating new components, making demos and custom scenarios. And I have been dealing with DropDownList, ComboBoxes, autocomplete boxes, multiple select, scheduler, my favorite one, uploads, and many other components. I'm from Sofia, and this is the nearby mountain called Vitsha. I just wanted to put it here. The idea of the talk is to share some thoughts about reusable components and how they could be built in Vue.js, and what we have learned in Kendo for building them for jQuery, Angular, and React so far. Here is the agenda. First, I'll share some thoughts about reusable web UI components. What is the idea behind them, and what types of components they are, and what are the usually taken steps to create a nice reusable component. After that, I will share a step-by-step implementation of a drop-down list in Vue.js. I have picked it up because it's very, very popular and almost on every page. Together with that, I will share a few things about Vue, nice Vue implementations. And at the end, I will share what we in Kendo prepared for Vue.js. First of all, components in Vue are one of the most powerful features. They help you extend basic HTML elements to encapsulate reusable code. A great feature from the beginning in Vue is that they have the component directly in the framework. And when you start with that, you just put your template, and you have already component straight from the beginning. It's actually the bricks of your web applications. The idea behind the reusable component: invest your time once and have something that will be nice and easily used after that on different places. In order to achieve it, you have to follow the latest technology trends, because otherwise you may build something and have it very old only after 1 or 2 years. You also want to have it tested very well. It is very important because you will have a reliable component and you will be able to use it without any worries. There are different types of reusable components. First of all, there are simple UI components. Depending on their complexity, they may be like inputs, buttons, animated elements. All of them, you will probably need 1 or several days to implement them in Vue, add the HTML and some nice CSS, and just a little JavaScript there. After that come more extended UI components that like drop-downs, pickers, tabs, and sliders, where you probably have some more functionality in the JavaScript part, like some selection, some keyboard navigation, or maybe some drag and drop scenarios. With all these scenarios come more complexity, and if you want to create such component, you will probably need like few weeks or more. At the end come like a super component, I call them like that. It will be something like a drop-down list that will have all the possible features that we need in your drop-down list, like a huge grid that is editable or groupable, or scheduler that has some support. These kind of super components need lots of time. Maybe it will be months or even years in some complicated cases. Usually the process of creating such components goes like this. First, we need a nice design. If you either take it from a ready design, or you need some designer that will create it for you. Otherwise, you are doomed, believe me. After that, you need a front-end developer who will take this design and put it on the page with a static HTML and some CSS. The next step that we usually take is to recognize some small components and divide this HTML into small parts so that we can have a small and easily testable components. After that, we take properties and events and export them so that this component can be easily communicating with the environment where it is. The next part may be adding a template. We usually do a pretty nice HTML, but there are often some cases where you want to put some custom HTML that will be used instead of the default one. After that, we need to add some keyboard support and accessibility. In nowadays web pages, it is almost a must, and many people rely on that. Last step is to combine all these things in one component. So here is how a very simple drop-down can look in Vue. Yesterday we had a similar example, yet here is with beers. You just have a select element that is bound with the vModel directive to the selected beer data property, and we have a data with some popular Dutch beers like Amstel Gold, Amstel Lager. You probably know the other ones. This is how this could look in a page. It's actually working pretty good, and have a keyboard support. Sorry. Yeah. Yes, that's it. But okay. Okay. I maybe need some help. Okay, I'll go on. You can have a nice select element, but it's not enough for nowadays designs. If you want to have a drop-down or something like that, you need to have more than a select. You need to have beautiful animation, for example, beautiful design with CSS. You need to be able to put different HTML elements or different images on your components. Here is, for example, a very simple scenario of that, where you just pick something from the drop-down. Another example of a drop-down design is like Google. We type something there, and we have some text results on, and below that we have the buttons. After that, we have a Twitter where you have different results there in the drop-down. In KendoUI, we have divided the drop-down designs in 4 different designs. The first one is DropDownList, where you have drop-down items below, and you can filter them in the input that is actually in the drop-down, and you have a selection area where you have the select text. Another design is the ComboBox, where you type in the input and have different items below, and you can have a custom value in that. You can also have a Google-like search that is in the autocomplete box, where you just add the text to the input. Last but not least is a multi-select option, where you have multiple selection, and when you select an item, it is added as a token to the input. A great advice from here is check your design and don't mix up any designs, because you will have a monster at the end with the exponentially growing bugs and no way to support them after that. If somebody asks you, may I add this functionality to your component, your custom component, just check the designer and don't hesitate to tell him this is another component. You have to build it from your own. Well, this is the design that we want to build in Vue.js. And we have it ready. So here is a moment where we can change it and separate some components in it. We have a selection field component and a drop-down. And in this drop-down, we have a search field, drop-down header, default item that will be selected if there are no selected items, list of items, and some footer. I will start with a very simple drop-down item. This is how it would look in Vue.js. We have a li element and several attributes. If you just put the attributes with the static values, they will be rendered on the page. Otherwise, if you want some custom value for example, area selected attribute, you can bind it with a vbind directive to the selected data property. We will also need some custom class and listening to the click event on that. Classes in Vue are implemented in a very gentle and nice way. If you remember in jQuery, you had to use add class and remove class if you want to add some class. And in more complex scenario, it became like hell. In React, for example, we have a class name where you can add some string, but if you need some more complex scenario, you need to use some external library like class names, for example. In ng class, we have a nice implementation that supports array and object, and same in Vue, where we have a vbind class or a column class. My favorite way for using this is to have a vbind bound to a computed property. If you don't know computed properties, it's like function that is only executed if some of the data properties in it are changed. Otherwise, it is cached and it's not executed. After that, we can go on and listen to our click event. It depends on, it can be declared with @, or vOn directive. And we need to add it after that to the methods object. And after that, we add a function that will handle that. If we want to emit after that the function to our parent component, we use the $emit function and pass our properties as parameters. And here are the props that I use for this very simple component. We can go on now with a list of items that will combine the items in the dropdown. But items are a little bit boring, so I'll go on with beers. In order to have the items and the beers, we can use the v-for directive. And it's working like a for in JavaScript. We have the list of items, and that is also taken from a computed, more complex property. And after that, we need to add the attributes of the list item according to the results. The important thing here is that we have to use the cape attribute because it's important for the Vue functionality. After that, we can go to our filter input. And it's actually a little span with input in it. We need to listen to the input event that is of this. There are two options here. We either use vOn and listen to the event, or use the v model that is actually listening to the input event and is changing the property that is assigned to that. Here we can use the watch object of the component and listen to the input value, where we have the new value and the old value, and we can emit them to the parent component with the appropriate event. Here we can listen also to the kDAO and blur for some other functionality that we can use for the keyboard support. After having the internal components, we can wrap them in a Popup component. Important thing for this component is it has to be able to be animated, and animation can be done easily with transitions. Transitions, as Eduardo showed, are very nice implemented in Vue, and one of my favorite features, we have like adding some name, and we just use the CSS that we want, like transform, for example, and we catch the enter, the leave to enter active and leave active moments, and just add our CSS. It depends on the vif or vshow directives. If we use vshow, the component will be rendered initially. If we use vif, it will be rendered only when the show, in this case, property is true. One other thing that is important here is that we have a slot component in that, and this provides the ability to add HTML or some components inside our pop-up. After that, we need to position our pop-up correctly. In order to position it right, we have two choices. Either use position absolute, that is, has to be done with computed calculations and services, and it's usually very complicated. We need to have both anchor and the pop-up component and calculate where they are and show the pop-up correctly. Another option is to use portals. Portals in React are already added, but in Vue we can use them with a nice library that is made from Weinersborg, and it's called Portal Vue. If he's here, applause. In my scenario that I hope I will show you at the end, we use services. And services, if you use them in Angular or in React, can also be used in your Vue application. If you use the created event from the lifecycle and just initialize them there, you can use them after that. Another important thing here is that we may need a reference to an element that will show us which is the anchor of the pop-up. In this case, we may use the ref attribute, but the important thing for that is that it is only initialized after the rendering of the components. That's why we cannot pass it down as a property to some of our components. In order to do that, we can pass it as a string and use it later in the appropriate moment with the $ref syntaxis. If you want to add styles in Vue, it's also pretty nice achievable. If you remember in jQuery, we had to use a CSS method, and it was very difficult in many cases. In React, we have a style object that can be added at render, and in Angular, we have ng-style. In a similar scenario, in Vue, we have a vbind style or column style, and we also can use it pretty nice with computed properties and just return an object with a property that is the name of the CSS that we want to set, and after that is some of the data properties that we use. In our case, we just set the width of our pop-up. The next step here would be just to add some slots, like a header of our dropdown or a footer, and in Vue, it's definitely one of my favorite features too. We just add a slot like that with the name, key, header, and after that, we can use our custom HTML and put it between the tags of our component, like this custom header, and we'll have it rendered directly where the slot component is put. We can also use it with v if we want to have some default HTML and only render the template if it's declared in the template. We can also use slots with v4. In this case, we have to be careful and make the name different because and use maybe the index of the v4, because when they are the same, things may easily mix up. Last in such scenario, but not least, maybe the virtual scroll. In order to implement such thing, we will need some more properties, but if you don't have it, you will definitely have a user that will come and say, I have 5,000 items and I want to put them in your component, and it's very slow. In order to add it, we just have like several more properties and more functionality, like the total number of the items, the skip that will represent the start of the subset of the items that will be rendered, the page size of the items that will be rendered, and some event to add the new items that will be rendered at our page. We also have to change the rendering so that we have a one div with the height of all the items, and after that we need to position correctly our dropdown so that it shows only the rendered items. Here's the time where I want to dive in the code, but maybe I will need some help to show you what I have. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll go on.
Just a small notice. We are going to do a Vue.js quiz with Evan Yu. We have some extra time before lunch, so just don't run. We have some prizes. Dirty prizes, they say.
Okay, I'll skip that for now. When we build all these things for our reusable component, we must think about a few more things. We must add some documentation for that, because otherwise, after just a year, you will have everything forgotten and nobody can use your component.
Is your computer working?
Yes, I just...
Yeah, it's working now?
Yeah, but okay. I want to show you, to show my code, but it's not showing on the screen.
Yeah, because you need to move it to the other screen. I think it's because of... why is it... Yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
but then you need to watch on the screen. I know it's not handy, but your screen is not clear. And now I lost the mouse. Oh, there we go. Okay. Here we go.
Okay, okay.
Just, have a look on.
Well, okay, this is actually what I prepared, and it is. I wanted just to show you, not to watch carefully, but it's the end drop-down component that is. Then you will have, when you have many other components, you just have a drop-down list that can have many properties on them, and after that, we'll have our computed properties, we have our methods, and I have added some keyboard support here, and okay, like that. Yeah, this is our final drop-down list that is purely done in Vue, and it's actually taken about 600 lines to add all this functionality together with the keyboard support and our virtual scroll. And I will try to show you my demo really quick. Okay, so here is a very simple item, and I wanted to show you the DevTools, how you can use it with the DevTools, but it will be quite difficult from here. Okay, I'm almost there. I wanted to show you that it's important to build very, very small components in the beginning so that you can test them easily and use, for example, the DevTools to change the style of the item, and after that you just grow with the components and use them and have them one by one displayed and usable on a standalone pages and can be tested alone. After that you just put them on your component and you know they work pretty well. Here is our final drop down. That we have all the beers that I found in the Netherlands, like the bottle beers. And I found about 115 beers. And here is the one with the virtual scroll, where you can scroll down to the 3,000 beers and select it too. It's a very edge case, but if you want to have some reusable components, you need to follow this case too. Okay, go back. So, after you have this component, you need to add the documentation, otherwise it will be unusable. You need to cover some custom cases that you think about them, the component, because you will face them sooner or later. After that, you want to have at least one person who understands this reusable component, because there will be bugs and there will be some custom cases. Beware. Usually the bugs are coming and they're inevitable. For example, in such component like dropdown, if I have made a research on internet, usually there are between 150 and 200 bugs for a component. There is another dilemma that comes here. Create it by yourself, like with all this that I showed you now. This is the perfect choice for me if you have a nice team and you have time to create it and you are able to support it. another chance is to choose a free open source component and put it in your project. In Vue.js, it's a great community, and there are many nice components and you can find them in GitHub. One little thing that concerns me here, that usually such side projects may be left aside and stay without support for a long time. Last but not least is the chance to get a component from a vendor, like KendoUI, for example. And here's the thing that I wanted to show you. We released several weeks ago a jQuery-based component library with more than 70 components for Vue, specially made. Here in these components, you can see components like grid, more than 20 charts, all the drop-downs that you see, data inputs, diagram, scheduler with time zone support, upload with chunk upload, review with drag and drop, and many others. These are all super components with many features. So if you go into your website and you have some task to build a grid large component, just think about them and you can check them. Together with that, we have about 17 skins for each one of these components. Like, this is our drop-down that I built, and we have a bootstrap, material, default, metro, material black, metal black, Nova, Office 365, silver, uniform, moonlight, high contrast, Fiori, flat, blue apple. And that's not all. We have also a custom theme builder. And you can take each one of these. I wanted to show you, but it will be difficult. You can check it later. You can take each one of these 17 skins and just with a few clicks on the interface, change it to your design that you want on your page. I'll try to do it if I have time. Well, no. Okay, it's here. Yeah, this is our theme builder, and you have all the components put here with their theme. And we have the main theme. We can just choose one other one, like this one. Oh, come on. Okay, I'll choose this green one. If we have internet, it should change. Well, what it actually does is changing some of the styles that are the main colors. After that, you have the chance to change your secondary color and all the colors like that on each one of the components. So after that, you can take your ready theme and download it and use it directly on your project. Well, that was pretty much what I wanted to show you. You can go to Telerik, www.telerik.com/kendo-vue-ui and check what we have. You may need it sometime. Thank you very much.
Thank you.